Hello and welcome to the Biztrepreneur podcast. I'm Kevin Ross and I'll be diving deep into conversation with entrepreneurs, hearing their stories, the highs, lows, tips, tricks and tactics, and most importantly to see where we can learn and hopefully be inspired. On today's episode, I'm chatting to Aidan or Carroll of Avalanche Designs. We hear about how his business started, how it literally started on his bedroom floor. He tells us a crazy story about a client from hell, and also how he loves to support his local GA and community. Give both of us a tag on Instagram and I hope you enjoy it.
Overall, I think the good outweighs the bad. And like I said, regardless of whatever you want to do, unless you have that failure and that rock bottom moment, I don't think you'll ever be able to drive on and hit the heights that you're looking to hit. I had 520 euros in my bank account at the time. So that left me with a grand total of about €6 to my name. You cannot cater for that. You can study business for 10 years and you can't cater for that. Just another kind of web designer, kid with a laptop to basically one of the biggest firms in the country.
Aidan or Carroll of Avalanche Designs, you're very welcome to the Biztrepreneur podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm delighted to have a fellow bellied off man on the podcast with me.
Yeah, for your sins, like I said, you're a client of ours, so I think we were contractually obliged to do this.
Aidan, look, just to give our listeners an intro as to who you are and what you do.
I guess, obviously my name is Aidan Carroll. I own a web design company called Avalanche. We've been doing this since 2012 at this stage. So we just basically do web design, e-commerce, search engine optimization for clients in Ireland and kind of all over the world, really.
Cool. And Aidan, just before we get into the nitty-gritty parts of the business and where you started, I suppose myself and Aidan met back in 2016 when I was like, I need a website for Carroll Castles. I was only using Facebook and social media at the time, and of course it kind of transformed the business. Anything going online and having more of a reach, it worked very well. And Aidan has been managing it and developing it since then. And so, Aidan, before we end up talking about where you started and before we talk about how you ended up being headline on local newspapers and local evening radio news, lady goes gaga for Aidan's designs. Look, where did it all begin?
I guess it really kind of depends on where you classify begin. Like I said, I came out of college in 2012. Now, at the time, you couldn't get a job. It was a terrible time to be a graduate. It was kind of at the stage where you even got kind of grateful for a rejection email, just to get some sort of reply or something.
Recognition.
So yeah, just literally anything rather than just applying for CVs and getting nothing from it. So at the time, I guess I just kind of started doing just bits and pieces of jobs for charities, local events, and it was just kind of grew from there, really. It's not really something I planned on doing. Kind of unlike yourself, I guess, who was kind of always like a serial entrepreneur, I guess, all your life, even since you were a kid, you're a lot younger. It's something I kind of fell into more than I guess you were born into, which I'm not sure a lot of people might be the same. But it was just kind of out of necessity more than something that you felt like, oh, okay, this is something that I really want to do, or I spotted a gap in the market or anything like that.
Yeah. It
was literally just a case of, okay, let's do this until a grown-up real job comes along, and then we'll take it from there.
And what did you do in college?
So I did information systems something. Can't really remember, to be honest. I'm kind of like a lot of entrepreneurs, like I said, even on your podcast, a couple of episodes that you started with, and others that you'd listen to, or just YouTube stuff you've seen over the years. I didn't really have the best relationship with formal education, primary school all the way up through third level, and that wasn't just because I didn't want to be there or anything. It was just a case of I was just kind of sleepwalked my way all the way through it. Even in primary school, I remember, it's only in hindsight now, I guess you think, you're displaying kind of entrepreneurial traits. I remember they were doing like a quiz, and you just have to do all the local schools in the area or whatever. And I was like dead set, I don't want to be on this team for a quiz. I want to do it myself. Just, I'll do it and I'll win it. And I was dead set on doing it. And they're like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it 3 other people, and you have to do a team, blah, 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 etc. And I was like, okay, fine. That's when we go on a team. So we did all the practice, the training, whatever. I knew all the answers, and we were all like, oh, cool, we're going to win this. We're going to get the 50 euros, whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, can't wait. Went back to Causeway inside the hall, and they did the competition, and they started doing the quiz, etc., whatever. I picked the spot on the wall, and I stared at it for 2 hours, didn't open my mouth. No, I was like, no, you do it my way, or look, we can all lose. And it's only in hindsight now you're like, okay, like it's the kind of entrepreneurial traits that you're pulling out. No, the people at the time weren't happy. My parents, with some old school parenting techniques, we got home.
Yeah.
But like I said, again, that was kind of, I suppose, my initial kind of problems with formal education. That it just wasn't for me. I mean, if I had my time back, and I know you've spoken about it and we've spoken about it before, I don't think I would have progressed on to third level education, or certainly not to the extent that I did. I went on, I did a master's after my degree, and I tell people all the time, just for me personally, it's a complete waste of time, waste of money. I wouldn't do it again.
It's if you just need to do it for yourself, like as in, I feel I haven't really benefited from it, but it's just something you're like, okay, I've done that. It's kind of like a tick the box moment.
Yeah, a little bit. Again, of course, coming from where I come from, like a council estate, kind of just basically from nothing. Just kind of maybe being a little chip on the shoulder a little bit, that you were like, okay, I can get some formal education here, higher education, because obviously at the time, 2012-ish, just everything was in ruins. It was terrible, work-wise. So I guess you just kind of went on from there, and I suppose to stay in education just for the sake of doing something, rather than just like, okay, I'm at home, I'm on the dole, what am I doing? Great.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my journey with that. I think the step into just kind of starting the business and entrepreneurial was, I was in third year of college, and actually, I'd sleepwalk my way all through primary school, secondary school. Did never have to study for anything, never any hassle. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I was just kind of going there because that's kind of where the bus stopped, for lack of a better term. You were just you were just turning up. You were there, like, cool, I'm here. I was going through the same thing in college, horns 3 or 4 nights a week. Basically just going to classes because, what else were you supposed to be doing? And it wasn't until I actually failed a module in college that I kind of actually got my act together. So I failed, was it project management, I think, with Mike Galvin. So I failed it in third year, and I thought, cool, no big deal. I'll just repeat it in August, happy days. But so what happened then is I failed it again in August. And it was the first time in my life that I'd ever actually failed at anything. That I actually genuinely had tried. I studied my arse off, I think, for the first time ever, and I failed. And it was the first time that I really kind of realized, oh, okay, you can't just do everything without trying.
I had a very similar situation where I did economics, and I did the exam, and I failed it. Then I went to August, and I failed it again, and then I ended up taking a gap year out, because I wasn't made for it, and that was it, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, like I said, looking back, at the time, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because, if I didn't have that initial failure, it wouldn't have lit the fire in me that I think I still kind of have to this day. And since the years passed, you kind of have, whatever I do, I attack it 100% with everything that I have, whether that's, going to the gym or work or, side projects, whatever it happens to be. But unless, you have that initial rock bottom failure, kind of looking at yourself in the mirror saying, look, if you don't get your act together here, you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life. Kind of moment, which everyone in business has, and we will continue to have those days as well. Like, both of us are in business nearly 10 years, and it's not all happy sunshine rainbows, as you well know.
Exactly.
You don't dance down the stairs every day into the office saying, "Oh, I can't wait to do this and get to work." But I think overall, I think the good outweighs the bad, and like I said, regardless of whatever you want to do, unless you have that failure and that rock bottom moment, I don't think you'll ever be able to drive on and hit the heights that you're looking to hit, the likes of, just basically whatever you want to do in life.
Yeah. You need that little bit of a push and motivation. And then, Aidan, I suppose, then it goes from, right, you have started the business. How did you go about even getting your first client? How did you get your name out there? What happened? How did you create your business profile, your personal profile?
Again, like I said, similar enough to yourself. It's just kind of something, you don't realize you're doing it until maybe, 6, 8 months, 9 months later, you're looking back and saying, okay, this is kind of the profile we made for ourselves. Now, at the time, social media was fantastic for us. We used Facebook a lot. So at the time, obviously, the algorithm was a lot more favourable to businesses. So you could basically put up any kind of half-decent content and you get interaction and you could grow and build from there. But I remember basically my own personal profile on Facebook, I would just add people randomly, people who maybe their dad might have a business or something like that. I was adding people, hundreds of people a day. Had no idea who they were. Had no idea who they were. So I would add hundreds of people a day, and I made a script basically to send everyone an automated message. hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. Do you want to check out our website? We do web design. Send me an email, give me a call, etc., etc. So I set this up on my laptop, just a script to automatically run to everyone on my friend list. And that was kind of how we started getting the name out there. I mean, there's people now on Facebook who just have, like, the only ever interaction from me is like a cold message from years ago. People who have no interest in it whatsoever, but like, you just had to get it out there. Now, of course, like I said, social media is a bit more problematic. You basically you have to pay to play for everything.
A lot of more paid ads, a lot of more money being involved.
Yeah. For example, we have nearly 17,000 followers on Facebook, and we just out of interest, I put up a post there before Christmas, and it reached like 11 people, I think. Just out of pure curiosity, because usually we'd promote everything. So at the minute, we have an ad going, like a Kerry jersey thing. So I've basically had to put €200 behind that, just to get it seen by anyone. Mm-hmm. So basically, when you add that up, if you're posting 4 or 5 times a month, that can quickly run away from you in terms of a budget. So we were lucky when we first started that we didn't have to do that. I'm sure you know yourself, a couple of years ago, it was a much more skewed towards business.
You get much more of a reach straight away. And now, like, for people starting off, you have Instagram, which is a little bit better. They're kind of fiddling around with that algorithm as well. But then you have the likes of TikTok, which is kind of like open and free at the moment. You can get a lot of reach there. But Facebook has reduced that. Unless you have a budget, you're not really going anywhere on Facebook if you start nowadays.
Yeah, I think you need to kind of know your audience really and know where they are. Like, for example, I could be on TikTok and like talk about web design, but am I going to secure a client there who's going to spend 8, 9, 10K on a project on TikTok? Mm-hmm. Probably not. But they probably will be on Facebook. So, I mean, it depends really on your audience and who you're catering to. But I think either way, whatever platform you're using or whoever you're targeting, I think now it's at the stage you will have to have some sort of a budget behind it.
So Aidan's going right back to when you got your first client, how did it happen and where did it all go from there?
Well, like I said, we were kind of just putting the name out there. When anyone starts a business, you just get the idea and the plan that, okay, this is going to be fantastic and the people are going to flock to this and it's going to take over the world and it's going to be amazing. And that's not always the case. So basically, we got our first paying client, because we were doing a lot of charity work and stuff up to this point, getting a lot of just basically practice and learning how to deal with people and learning how to speak and just how to hold a meeting, etc. So we got our first paid client and it ended up being €250 for 6 months work.
Wow.
So if you work that out, that's a little more than €1 a day.
Loaded.
Exactly. So at the time you finish it and we got the check. And I was like, this is amazing. This is it. All those days in college, you get that high, but then, you're not long straight away. You're like, oh shit, I'm working for pennies here.
Yes.
So basically then we had to just kind of, at that point, of course, you're very raw about the whole thing. You were chasing the client for content and we were happy to wait 3 weeks for them to come back to us for a paragraph of text and a couple of photos and stuff. Whereas now, it's a much more streamlined process. We end up juggling 20, 30, 40 projects a month. But, again, like I said, that's just a learning curve that everyone has to go through. We managed to learn a little bit from that first 6 months of hard graft, and we moved on to got another client. And then at those days, my goal was kind of, let's get a client in every county, just kind of like tick off the map or whatever. So we were kind of moving through that. We got a Limerick, Cork, Dublin, and slowly, but surely, we started building a base. Our fees started going up, thankfully. And we weren't working for pennies anymore. So basically we're scaling up to the minimum wage level we were scaling up to, which...
from €250 for 6 months work to minimum wage,
Yeah, so it's not the glamorous that you might think it was back in the day. So we were scaling up to that, and then we were lucky enough, I entered a competition online to do some just design work for a couple of music artists. And basically, like I said, at the time, we had nothing but time, because you're basically hunting and scrounging for every bit of work that you can get. So we just did a bit of design work in for a couple of like well-known music acts, like Lady Gaga, Beyonce, stuff like that. So then that really kind of, I guess, headlined us a little bit, just in terms of people actually started to learn what I actually did for a living, like locally. Yeah. And basically from there, then we just managed to grow and basically rinse and repeat all the way through it. We just kept going and going. And luckily, we're happy to be here 9 years later.
And I suppose from things like headline the paper and being on the local news in the evening, that is great advertisement more than anything. That's better than any Facebook post.
Yeah, it is. If you'd asked me at the time, I was incredibly uncomfortable about it because, I'm just skinny nerd with a laptop, I don't need to know about any of this. So it was the first kind of, look, we've made it, we know what we're doing here kind of moment. Vindication, I guess, that, this could grow and this could actually be something if we play our cards right.
So from then, when you got those couple of first clients, to now bring it up to 2021, what marketing strategies did you use to actually get yourself there?
Yeah, so we typically, like I said, in my opinion, like Paddy Power is a fantastic marketing campaign. Everyone, like, there would be one of my favorites. They always do well at any awards, whatever. So, and it kind of suited my personality as well, in that, I wanted to be in business, but at the same stage, I didn't want to take it too seriously, because that's just not who I am as a person anyway. So that's kind of the line that we've always kind of drawn across all of our marketing, branding, website, everything. It's kind of flirting with that corporate/fun line. So that was kind of where we landed, and I think that correlates well on any social media rather than, the hard corporate line, which people just aren't going to interact with organically on social media, or just in general, really, to be honest.
And then, of course, with every business, that we know this, that there's highs and then there's lows. What was a time where something kept you up at night, pain in the head, kind of blood pressure rose a little bit, kind of went like, what am I going to do here? Because every business faces some sort of a problem, and to tell our listeners how you overcome it.
Yeah, I think it's the same with every business. I think there's a tipping point. So obviously when you start your business for the first couple of months, years, you'll probably have more time looking at the phone, wanting it to ring more than anything else. And then obviously there will come a stage where that'll be the inverse, in that, you kind of just look, if people could leave me alone for a while, I'm too busy. I've had both, so it's good to have that second problem. A big problem for us was basically learning how to scale the business, because we were lucky enough in that it took off massively around 14, 15, 16. So we basically went from, like I said, just another kind of web designer, like kid with a laptop, to basically one of the biggest firms in the country. So it was really hard at the time to scale up and to live with that scale, in that, you have existing clients that you have to keep happy, the likes of yourself, all the time, of course. And then you have new clients coming on board that you just basically have to give all your attention to, and you just end up being pulled in 10 different directions, because, when you're in the kind of B2B market, you're a service provider, so you end up as a fixer of problems most of the time, rather than anything else, as opposed to, say, if you're just selling t-shirts or whatever, you make a sale, good luck, on to the next. So we were lucky in that we kind of isolated our SEO work, is like search engine optimization. For people who don't know, it's basically how Google ranks different businesses, and it's basically one of the most important things. Like, for example, if you Google Bouncy Castles Kerry, what's number one, Kevin?
KR Bouncy Castles.
Exactly. But, that's years of both of us working on that. That's literally years we've been working on that to get that there. What I've found is that takes a lot of work, the search engine optimization stuff, for every single client. But a lot of it is pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, a junior developer could do this in his sleep. So what I found, I was spending 20, 30, 40 hours a week doing this, which of course was taking away then from my initial design work, which is key to getting new clients, which is key to our advertising, word of mouth, referrals, etc. So basically I kind of sat down and I said, look, if I can make something here, if I can code up some script to do this SEO work for me, then this will free up all my time to do on the design work, and the SEO I'll just need to check in an hour or so every week. So I ended up working, kind of tinkering with artificial intelligence to do this for me. And we were lucky enough in that I somehow figured it out. I don't really know how yet, but it's still working for us anyway. So that basically runs the SEO section of the company. That frees me up to do all the design stuff for all the new clients, word of mouth. So we've gone from working 6 months for €250 to the SEO arm of the business alone turning over $1 million in profit just on its own every year. And we don't really have to worry about that. That's typically kind of the biggest problem we had, was to scale that. And we were lucky that I was able to build something that does it for us now. So we've gone from that euro a day to that $1 million profit on one arm, just kind of over the last couple of years, which has been really helpful to us.
And then on the total opposite side of it, people are going to get sick of this term, the sunshine and rainbows of a business. Like, what was the peak moment so far in your, how many years of business? It is
nearly 9
years of business. So what is the peak moment where you're like, okay, this is class, I've done something good here now?
I'm not sure that has happened yet, to be honest with you. I'd like to think we haven't peaked yet anyway. Like I said, I think that might be actually one of the things I'm very bad at, is actually sitting back and saying, this is good, we've done that well, this has been a great moment, etc. I'm typically kind of, once we achieve something and it's done, then okay, let's get on to the next thing. I've never really been one to celebrate wins like that, which is like, if anyone is starting a business, I would recommend you try and do that, because I'm terrible at it. I guess maybe the SEO thing, again, going back to my surroundings, upbringing, etc., to hit those kind of revenue targets that we set. Like, for example, when I started the business, I had 2 goals, and it was to change the world with technology, which I gave myself 10 years to do that. So I need to get my skates on in the next year. And I give myself 5 years to hit 1 million in revenue. So we managed to hit the second one. The first one for changing the world might be a little bit away yet.
You still have another couple of months anyway.
Yeah, I got a year and a bit. So, I mean, hopefully, like I said, I would be hoping to sell my AI software to someone down the road, a couple of interested parties. But again, like I said, I'd be worried what they do with it. So I might keep it close to the chest for the time being.
The new Jarvis for Ireland.
That's the plan. Like I said, typically what we started it with was basically to run bits of the company. Like I said, it'll do the SEO stuff, it'll do like general emails, stuff like that for me. So the plan would be to export that and create a kind of a smart home situation for people. So I could sell that in as a smart home package to people with new builds, sectors like that. So it would run your security, heating. You have smart devices like your fridge. It would automatically generate shopping lists for you based on what you eat. Basically run the house for you. Like I said, Jarvis in Ironman, that would be the goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, maybe that might be the thing that I do to change the world, as I wrote on my little post-it 10 years ago nearly.
So Aidan, going from there, right, you have become an employer, which is great for the economy, number one, no matter how small or big it is. And then how did you manage getting that whole side of the business started? That's another big jump.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's tough for everyone who goes from basically being a one-man show to bringing other people on board, because at the end of the day, it's your baby, so you're slow to let anyone, I suppose, do anything independently. Even with my SEO kind of hack, which I suppose is the only term for it, we were struggling. I couldn't do everything myself. I mean, I was working 20 hours a day, just burning myself out. Share the load, to be honest with you. So we're up to a team of 9 at the minute. Everyone just kind of does their own bits and pieces. Like I said, I have my 2 main kind of lieutenants, Francis and Tommy, who, again, I'll obligate them to listen to this, just so they get a mention. They'll be happy out. They're kind of my 2 main guys. If I have a bad day, or if I'm busy, or if life gets in the way, I can delegate everything 100% to the lads, and then that'll filter down to everyone else. Yeah, like I said, we're lucky enough to be growing. Like I said, COVID hasn't really impacted us a whole pile. If anything, we're probably one of the few industries to thrive, because there's a mad scramble to get online. Irish business as a whole is reactive, I've always found. So I mean, it was only until something happened that people made this rush. But like I said, it suits us and basically any other developer who's kind of worth their salt, really.
Then from in college, right, and you're saying, look, I'm going to become a designer. I'm going to make websites, and a lot of people back then could be very kind of saying, what, are you going to sit in front of a computer and make websites? Because obviously things have come a long way since then. How did you deal with the amount? I'm sure, and I could bet that there was probably people that were kind of like, you're mad, you're crazy, boy.
Yeah, it was a bit, to be honest with you, because like I said, it's a crowded space. I mean, you could get a 14-year-old now, and he could probably, if you needed to, cobble together a website for you on Wix or whatever. But I just I knew kind of coming out of college, I'd done a bit of research, and I just kind of knew this was something that I was good at. No, I didn't always have the plans to go into business for myself. I thought, okay, I'll just get a job with a web design firm and pay my dues there. I remember my last year in the IT, they did some program for local business people, and they'd mentor you for 6 months or something. Okay. And I remember it was Ogie Sheehy, actually, from Vi Clarity. I'm sure you'll have him on here at some stage.
Yeah.
Ogie's definitely going to be on your list. So basically, Ogie and myself were just chatting away, and they had their checklist of things you have to do for the exercise, whatever. But we were just kind of ignoring it and just basically chatting, saying, look, I want to do this, I think this will work, etc. And Ogie basically told me, look, you're mad. What are you doing? It's a crowded market. It's not going to work out. And basically said, look, this is a risky option. And the funny thing is, because I get that in my DMs a lot now, people asking me, look, I think I want to be a web designer. And I would probably give the same advice that Ogie gave me at the time. I said, look, this is a crowded market, man. Unless you really love this and you really want to get after it, and you're probably not going to break into it and succeed into a full-time manner. Like you said, for example, I worked 6 months for €1 a day nearly. So, I mean, unless you really love it, then it's hard to break into that. And that goes for any kind of tech sector, really, that you want to get into. If you want to do social media marketing or web design, whatever you want to get into, it's a tough space to break into. So you really have to be prepared to kind of basically work for nothing for a long time.
But look, the caption that I've always read from any of your articles or anything like that is a kid with a dream.
Yeah, well, that's kind of that's what my grandfather always used to call me. Even like he passed away last year, and he actually gave me my first business lesson, because I remember my first job with him was paving when I was a teenager, and I remember I was very, very close to packing in school before the junior cert, because I was getting €50 a day in the summer when I was working. And you can imagine there now when you're that age, €50 a day.
Loaded.
You get €300 after working Saturday as well, a half day. So €300 Saturday into Tralee, buying everything I could, and being broke again by Monday morning. You think, this is it, this is going to be my life now, happy days. And I remember, and I talked to my parents at the time, I wasn't too happy in school, I was kind of getting into trouble. I just had no interest in being there. And I said to my grandfather at the time, everything was going well construction-wise. It was kind of before the bottom fell out of the country. And I said to him, look, I'm getting €50 a day here. I'm doing the same work as guys who are getting €100 a day. You give me €100 a day and I'll pack in school and you'll have a full-time employee. And he told me where to go. He said, not a hope. and I said, no problem at all. I'm back in school Monday morning. And it's mad, like my whole life, the whole couple, everything could have just flipped on that one decision. I mean, the two of us were so stubborn that we probably could have had a conversation about it and came to some sort of arrangement. But the minute he said no, then I was like, okay, back to the stubborn 10-year-old kid I was again. And he was just as bad as me. Even now to this day, we're running 9 employees. We're in it's 29 different countries or something. So even now, I still see myself as basically that skinny 19-year-old kid on my parents' box room floor, basically trying to cobble together a website with basically an antique of a laptop.
Yeah, a big box of a thing probably.
Yeah, even in, going back to it, if you wanted to do it, you had to go all in on it. I remember I had €520 in my bank account at the time when I kind of finished college.
Right.
So I registered the domain, Avalanche Designs.ie, and that was June 15th, 323, and I bought a laptop the next day for €499. So that left me with a grand total of about €6 to my name total. So I kind of had no choice but to make sure it was a success, to be honest with you. I never had that fear of failure because I had no choice. You just had to get on with it. I had no choice. It was either do this or be hungry, basically. That's why I've always kind of looked into it. There's no need for a plan B. Go all in on plan A if you believe in something. And I'm not sure if you've had this moment or other people listening.
If you want to do it, you'll just do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't really explain it, and I don't mean to sound too hippy-dippy or whatever, but, I just knew it was going to be a success. And, whatever it took, it was going to work out. And again, like I said, it was just going back to that, that first moment of failure, in that you were almost afraid of ever feeling like that again. And I thought, look, if I try this and it doesn't work out, I'm going to have that same feeling. Hopefully, again, touch wood, I'll never have that feeling till the day I die, because that's just something you want to avoid entirely. That fear of failure almost drove me on rather than the hunger of success.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and tell yourself one thing before you actually started out, what would you say?
I would say enjoy it more than I have over the years. Personally, for myself, it feels like I've been doing this for 20 years, but 6 months at the same time. It feels like a long time, but at the same stage, a short time, because it only feels in the last 4 or 5 years, etc., that we've made it, we're a success. We're going to drive on and we're going to really capture even more the market. We're going to basically take over. So I'll enjoy the journey of it more than looking at it as a goals and plans scenario, because it can be tough. You get wrapped up in it. You're like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, etc. But you have to enjoy it as well, which is only something I'm still learning, to be honest with you. It's only in the last year or two that I'm actually being able to look at it at the business and say, like you mentioned earlier, it's like, okay, that was really cool. We did this. I really enjoyed that. But that would be the one bit of advice I would give to myself.
And what's your end goal for Avalanche Designs? What do you see happening in the near future? They're like, this is where I wanted to go. And I know, and every time I ask this question, they say, oh, I don't want to say it in case it doesn't happen, but look, everyone can have their dream.
Yeah, I have no problem at all saying, like I said, I truly believe, that no matter what you do in this life, you want to be a DJ or developer, bouncy castle empire, whatever it is. I mean, I really do believe, you have to get after it and attack it with everything that you have. Because, otherwise, you might as well just get a job working in your local shop, whatever you want to do. So, yeah, I think basically just kind of expand, grow as we can. I mean, we have 9 employees and myself at the moment. So, I mean, I want to double that. I want to triple that. I want to be the biggest web design firm in Ireland, in Europe. I want people to come to us and say, look, I need an Avalanche website. Become the premium firm in the world. And, it might sound a bit arrogant, but I mean, if you don't have those goals for yourself and for your business, who will?
No one. You have to have it yourself.
It's that fear of failure, which probably spurs myself on, and going back to that chip in my shoulder that I had for a long time. So whether that's something that drives you on, which you can use for whatever your motivation, or if it's basically something that you love doing and you want to make a career out of it, whatever way, however you find it, I think that's down to every individual person to find it for themselves.
And for someone starting off in business, or for someone sitting on an idea and saying, do I not?
Yeah, I think basically my only advice would be just practice, learn. Whatever it is you want to do in this world, you should do it with the sole purpose of being the best person in the world to do that thing. I don't care, you want to be a race car driver, play for Man United, if you want to scrub toilets, whatever it is, do it with the sole purpose of being the best person in the world to do it. Now, you might not hit that. That's a very real possibility. But I mean, if you have that aim and that target, then you will go a long way. Rather than like saying, oh, well, I think I might do this and this might be a good idea. I don't want to hear about might. If someone approaches me about a business plan or an idea, don't talk to me about might. Tell me what's going to happen. Tell me how you're going to make it happen and get after it.
So Aidan, work-life balance, for a man, I suppose, that probably spends most of his 24 hours in a day sitting in front of the computer, how do you manage it?
Yeah, you see, this is a tricky one for myself, and I might lose a few people here. I'm not a big one for this work-life balance, to be completely honest with you. Again, like I said, it's probably easier for me because I can work from home, and again, COVID has an impact, plus the whole pile. But I don't really want to hear about work-life balance. You want to create something amazing, work. Steve Jobs, Phil Knight, massive heroes of mine. They created Apple and Nike. They don't talk about work-life balance. There's work, and they chased it. I know, like I said, probably especially in your early years, if you're starting a business, you're going to have to work basically like a madman, like a lunatic, 10, 15, 20 hours a day if needs be. Now, like I said, that's not entirely healthy, and it's not sustainable long term. Especially, I'm 31 now, so I mean, moving into my 30s, and myself.
You're looking at the whole work-life balance now more than you were 10 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah. When I was your age, okay, cool, no problem at all. And especially, because myself and Steph, my partner, we don't have kids. So now I can use these years and the last 9 years, I have no distractions. So if you can't do this now in this time, when are you going to do it? In 5 years' time, we could have 2 or 3 kids running around the place. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not going to be able to go at this hammer and tongs like I have been. But hopefully, by then I will have the processes in place that it'll take care of itself, which happens with every business. Obviously, you're not going to have to put in, 20 hours a day when you're 9 years in, as opposed to when I was 1 year, 2 years in. Yeah. That was needed, in my opinion. But of course, that's just my 2 cents. Well, what I have found is useful for myself is the gym. And basically, like I say, I play a lot of sport. So the gym is useful for myself in that I can get up from the computer for an hour a day. I can move. I can actually turn off my brain for an hour, which is very useful especially in the tech world, because otherwise, you're just basically sitting down all day, every day. So getting out from the gym really helps. And what I have found in the early days is that it really helps develop a mindset more than anything, in that, if you're getting up every day and you're going to the gym, you're going to be eating right, you're going to be drinking lots of water, etc. So your brain is going to be right. And by definition, you're just going to be more productive anyway, because you're looking after yourself and your brain is just working better for you. I suppose there was a little bit of the work-life balance I could get after. But, at the same stage, I don't really have an end goal for the gym. you'd meet people like, oh, what are your goals for your training, etc., etc. And I'm like, dude, show me a picture of Chris Hemsworth. I go to the gym every day to look as much as possible like Chris Hemsworth. Now again, like that's never going to happen. I'm never going to get there. But if I can have that target in mind and aim for that, if I come even remotely close, I'm going to be I'm going to be happy. So I can take that gym work then, and I can just apply that mindset to my business. In that this is going to suck for an hour. This is going to be crap. I don't want to do it. But then when it's done, I'm happy out. I'm loving life. So that's really kind of helpful for me. That's the kind of escapism I have, I guess. You have the gym and just kind of, I suppose, with COVID, kind of glued to my PS5. But
you need that breakaway, that outlet that you can just blow off steam a bit,
Yeah, I think so too. Especially, at the moment, because you can't just, go for a drink with your friends the weekend. I have a great bunch of friends around me in that, they're really supportive of Avalanche and, they share all the stuff, etc. But at the same stage, they don't really care what I do for a living. Like, they'll ask, how's work, whatever. I could be stocking shelves in Super Value. They just don't care, which is fantastic as well. When you actually do get a little bit of success and it does go out your head a little bit. It's something I've been guilty of it myself in the past, of getting carried away with myself a little bit. And they have no problem whatsoever bringing me back down to earth, which is what you need as well.
Yeah. Aidan, I've asked this question to everyone so far. Tell us something interesting about yourself that nobody knows.
I guess, I have two things. I guess I was actually only discussing this with Steph the other day. It's actually one of my dreams is to invent a word. I'd love to invent a word. So when I'm dead and gone in 100 years from now, that's my word.
Aidan O'Carroll from Ballyduff created a word.
Yeah, like I said, no one can ever take that away from me. Like I just, for whatever reason, I've always had that for as long as I can remember. And the other one is, I guess I'm aiming to be a grandmaster in chess by the time I'm 40.
Wow, chess.
Yeah, I love chess. I've always loved chess. Even in primary school, I was thrown out of our chess club in primary school because they got a teacher in, and I ended up beating the teacher when I was 11, and he wasn't a bit impressed, and he had a tantrum. So then I was told to stay at home from then on.
Have you watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix?
I haven't actually. No. I'm worried I'll hate it, and I'd be like just complaining about it.
I think you'll absolutely love it. If you're talking like that now about being a master in chess, that's your next go-to.
Oh, well, I'm a long way from that yet, but I mean that is kind of I guess when you have your little life goals, whatever, that is something that I would love to do outside of work.
And someone that you've looked up to since the start of your business, where they've went, what they've done, and I kind of tried to follow their whole ethos.
Liam and Martin Ross. No, seriously though. Steve Jobs has always been a big hero of mine. Phil Knight started Nike, and oddly enough, actually the three of us share the same birthday. I've always I've always had that as a kind of little sign from the universe, if you buy into that kind of thing. Yeah, they've always been two massive heroes of mine. And, obviously you have people now like Whitney Wolf at Bumble.
Oh, yeah. There was massive publicity about her on LinkedIn over even the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, which is fantastic, man, because honestly, even whenever we're advertising positions, women in tech are incredibly underrepresented. So you would hope that was something that would inspire the next generation of girls to pick up a laptop and code or whatever they happen to get into. But yeah, you'd have people like that, Jack Ma, Justin Kahn, and even locally, you just have to look over the road, like Edmund Harty, people like that, basically, they've been there, done it, kind of laid out the road for the likes of ourselves. And even then, like I said, your uncle Liam at the shop, he's been a big help to me over the years. Never have asked him for advice on anything. He's always been like, yeah, Aidan, this is what you should do. But never kind of like, okay, do this, do that. It's just always nudging you a direction more than a hard this, do that. Which
you always need that bit of support and that person to go to.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's important to have, people around you. They'll actually give you kind of an arm around the shoulder. But at the same stage, kick up the arse if you need it as well, because that's just as important. Because, especially in the early days, you can tend to feel sorry for yourself when things go against you. Like I said, I've had some horror stories, some clients, and with any walk of life, you'll just meet some people you just don't get on with. Again, that's all an experience. That's all ahead of you if someone is trying to start a business or if they're humming and hanging over an idea. That's going to happen. Those days are going to happen. You're going to have sleepless nights. You're going to, like I said, I've worked myself to exhaustion. Like I've had panic attacks. It's not pretty a lot of the time, but at the same stage, I wouldn't swap it for anything in the world.
So, Aidan, you're dealing with businesses from all industries. Have you ever had a client from hell?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit slow to tell this story, but I think I'm going to throw it out anyway. So we're lucky enough that we've only ever had, I guess, I could count on one hand the amount of like quote unquote clients from hell, but the one that really kind of takes the biscuit and it gets shared around a lot online in developer circles is one I had a couple of years ago. So it was a client. At the time, we were getting work outsourced to us from different development agencies. We weren't quite at the level yet to do it, so we were happy out. We were kind of freelancing for other people. So we got a freelance gig for this woman who did jars of honey. And it had won awards, Blast in the Air, and it had basically it was going to take over the world of honey in Ireland. And we were like, cool, happy days. This is going to raise our profile. This is going to get lots of traffic on the website. Because a big part of our marketing strategy is we'll have a signature at the bottom of every site, designed by Avalanche. And even if people don't click it, it's a massive SEO link back to our own website. So basically we have thousands of links all over the internet, which helps build us up. She had links to Nevin Maguire and everything, so we were like, all right, cool, let's do this. We'll get in with Nevin Maguire for
yeah, why not?
Cool, big clients, let's go. Talked to her over the phone. She was all, happy out. She was basically like your nan. She was like, oh, I'd like to do this and that, and we were like, cool, no problem. Very straightforward stuff. It was basically a handful of products, wrap them up, sell them online. Happy days, it was nothing too hectic.
E-commerce website.
Yeah, nothing too hectic.
Perfect.
So she gave us a brief. This is what I like the look of. And typically what happens then is we would take that brief, kind of put our own spin on it, make a homepage, send it back. Once a client likes the look of the homepage, then we'll just flesh out the rest of the website, page by page, product by product. Within a half an hour getting the test link, she was like, oh, this is brilliant, love it. Let's go through it. So we rattled through the rest of it in 8 or 9 days, put it live, everything was rosy in the garden. I was thinking, Jesus, that was brilliant. That was no hassle whatsoever. This is the most straightforward e-commerce website we've ever done.
I'm so intrigued as to what you're going to tell me here. This is going this sounds so good, and I'm there kind of going, what's he going to come up with
Oh, just wait. So yeah, and everything was great. And I was like, because at the time we were a little bit green on e-commerce stuff. It wasn't as huge as it is now. Then she started ringing me at just crazy hours of the day. You're talking 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, and first I put it down to as in, okay, look, she's an older woman. She doesn't really know what she's doing. So cool. We'll just walk her through it. It'll grand, she'll leave me alone in a couple of days, and she'll just learn to do it herself. We gone through her with tutorials, and then kind of almost like you'd flip a switch. She just got completely, just absolutely vicious about everything. So she would start ringing me, emailing me, harassing, saying, oh, we need this changed, we need that changed. I'm losing out on 20,000 in sales a day. This is terrible, you've ruined my business. And I remember I was coming home from the gym in Ballybunion, and I thought, this is the end now, and I'm going to end up being a loser for the rest of my life because I'm going to lose my business. My parents are going to have to sell their house, and basically, we're all fucked, basically.
Every worst idea was coming into your head. It's going to, yeah.
That's just how it happens. You just think, okay, the world is going to end. And basically, we started jumping through all her hoops then, in that she wanted this changed, luminous pink backgrounds, yellow fonts. It was like something you'd make yourself on Microsoft Paint when you were 10 years old. We ended up taking our signature off it because I was like, I just can't put my name on this. This is absolutely atrocious. And we thought, all right, look, we're making her happy. She can't complain too much now. Let's, bad client, let's get rid of her.
Yeah.
And we thought, happy days. Hadn't heard anything in a bit. And then she kind of started coming back to us then and saying, look, you need to change this, you need to change that. And I was kind of getting ready to kind of bounce back and say, look, we can't really keep doing this for you. We need, this is a lot of our time. And she said, okay, that's fair enough. And we left it at that. And then weeks kind of went past, didn't hear anything from her. And then she basically rang me and said, I want a total refund. You've cost me over 100,000 euros in sales. And that if I didn't pay her a lump sum today, I was basically going to be completely shaken down, and that her legal
oh my god,
her legal team was going to nail us to the wall, and every kind of nightmare situation you could think of going through my head. I had gone past the stage of kind of being afraid of her, which I was at the time, to be completely honest.
And Aidan, where were you in your business journey at this stage? How many years were you?
This is 2014. This is
so you were only literally 2 years in business, and
lady
is shouting over the phone.
Yeah, I'd been around a little bit, but at the same stage, I was still a little bit green because, she was still kind of like an older woman. So it kind of felt a little bit, it was like your mother giving out to you. She kind of reduced me down to kind of 2 inches tall a little bit. So at this stage, I was kind of starting to grow a little bit. I was kind of thinking, okay, Aidan, don't lose it on the phone, because this is just going to be terrible and she's going to leave you a bad review and you'll be destroyed online. So it was then I got that phone call from her and I just kind of hung up on her and I was like, look, I'm going to say something I regret. So I didn't hear anything back for ages. I was kind of building myself up and I was like, all right, let's make this phone call now. And I tried ringing her back a couple of days later and just rang out. And I was like, okay, maybe she's just going to decide to leave me alone. And it didn't turn out until a few days later. I came in from the gym again and my mom was just taking up the dinner for my dad. He was expected home from work. And I turned on the news and I heard that a woman and a man had been killed somewhere up the country. I took no notice, it was just in the background. And then I heard the name and I was like,
stop it.
I know that name. So it was her. It was the one, Julia Holmes.
She was killed?
Yep, she killed. So what ended up being is that she was a professional con woman. She was basically wanted by the FBI, the Irish police, the Northern Ireland PSNI, I think it is. So she was a professional con woman all her life, and she had married this guy up the country somewhere who he seems to be a victim more than anyone, to be honest with you. So what they were doing is they were selling this honey. They were buying it in bulk from Lidl or Aldi or somewhere and repackaging it as Irish organic honey, and they were winning all these awards.
Oh my god!
But they ended up. I think it ended up being like a murder-suicide or something like that, because basically the world was closing in around them. So I think in the end she ended up basically trying to shake me down for some money.
She wanted $100,000 there.
Yeah, exactly. And their bodies were found by burglars who had broken into like the shed house or farmhouse or whatever it happened to be. So the burglars found the bodies, but then they rang the guards.
Don't tell me for God's sake.
The burglars rang the guards because they were worried they'd be implicated in the murder.
To say that they were like, oh, why were you here? I was actually going to rob the house there.
So that's exactly. So they were arrested for trying to rob the house, but they actually had to basically grass themselves up in the end up.
Jesus, Aidan, that's awful sad. Oh my God.
Basically, so yeah, that's basically been my worst client from hell. Like I said, they weren't even noticed gone missing because, like I said, they were on the run from the guards, FBI. Ever since we've had that kind of client from hell, everything else is, kind of pales in comparison. So that's kind of been the worst that's ever been.
Aidan, I think you've won that question.
Yeah, I love whenever I go to like conferences or like I'm speaking to like colleges or whatever, and they're like, I have a good client from hell story, and I'm always like, no, you don't.
I have one better.
You're not going to beat mine. But yeah, that's crazy. Like they're the kind of things that you cannot cater for that. Like you can study business for 10 years and you can't cater for that. So that's kind of been the worst client from hell story. Which is it's obviously had a very sad ending for everyone involved.
Of course,
but
of course.
It's just a mad story from our point of view, because as I said, I must have been one of the last people she spoke to.
So Aidan, from humble beginnings and then being able to give back to your local community, I've seen a couple of posts recently.
Yeah, I think anyone, especially if you happen to be doing well in business and you happen to have some level of success, whatever success means to you personally, I think you are obligated to do something for your local community and the people who helped basically raise you. Like, for example, like we do a lot of work for our own GA club here. Like personally, I owe a lot to that GA club. It instilled a want to win in me from a very young age that I know a lot of the rest of the lads identify as well with in their own like professional lives. Between that and trying to help local schools, just giving away tablets, computers and stuff. I mean, they love to see me going in Harvey Norman's because basically whenever I come in, I've just weighed down with laptops or tablets or whatever. And the funny thing is, my brother works in there, but he works in like a different department. He works in like the home entertainment or something, so he can never give me like a staff discount or anything. So I'm always cursing him. But again, like I said, if you can to try and give back to people, like I said, village like ourselves, GA is the heartbeat of the community. Like I said, your uncle is just as involved, if not more than anyone. And so I think it's kind of, again, it instilled a real like a win in me that I've always had to this day. And I think that translates itself to business. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, I sponsored Ratu, be our local soccer team. And I play centre back for Ratu. So we were lucky enough then that we won the league final. We knew for a long time who we'd be playing. I was absolutely terrible that day. I played centre back and I was responsible for about 2 goals. Like my boots were on the wrong feet. I was absolutely atrocious. The lads absolutely reddened me, and they were well within their rights to. I was terrible. Personally speaking, I knew then that when it came to the final, if I do my job, we'll probably win, because you can trust the likes of Mikey, Podrick, Boyle. They'll do their job and they'll win. So what I did was, again, just display my obsessive attention to detail, is I found out the guy who I'd be marking, basically. I found out where he goes to the gym. So for the 4, 5, 6 weeks before the final, I found out where he went to the gym and I found out what time he went to the gym. And I would make sure every time he was in that gym, I was right next to him, working harder than he would. So I'd be there before him and I would leave after him. So then by the time it came to the day of the final, he would know that no matter what he did, he wouldn't outwork me. I was going to beat him and I was going to run longer, harder, faster. Whatever he did, he wasn't going to win. So then I was kind of confident in the detail that we had that won before we ever played, because...
That is dedication, Aidan. That is beyond.
Some people would call it obsession.
Obsessed, yeah.
But that's the level of detail that I took from that initial failure, again, from like I failed in that first game, that I could take that and translate that to the final when it was important. And luckily that we won like 6-1 or something. The guy I was marking was taken off after half an hour. I was happy out. So basically, a little bit psychotic, but we got there in the end. That's the kind of level of detail, the fire, again, that local community just kind of instill in you, that fear of failure and that want to win at any cost, which I think, again, translates itself well to business. I think that's why you see a lot of like high-end sports, like county sportsmen and women move into business on retirement, because, they're chasing that competitiveness, that edge, that want to win, which business will give you, especially at the higher corporate end, which is it can end up a little bit like a drug, because if you're any bit competitive whatsoever, you're chasing it, you want to win, you want to compete, you want to be the best, which will lend itself well to your business, because if you're aiming to be the best, even if you don't hit that, you'll go a long way towards it, rather than just middling around the road.
Aidan, tell our listeners where they can find you.
You can just visit the website avalanche.ie, or you can on Instagram, it's Aidan_avalanche, or that's pretty much it. You can Facebook, just Google us, you'll find it.
Aidan, thank you very much for being my 5th guest of the Businesspreneur podcast. It's been an experience this hour hearing the whole story of Avalanche Designs. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the 6th episode of the Businesspreneur podcast. We are now so close to being 1 month active as a podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for sharing it. And as I'll say it again, it has been a roller coaster. I've really enjoyed it. You know what I really felt when it went out and when I uploaded it, I just felt like I kept on forgetting that there was actually people listening to me somewhere. Set your alarms for next Thursday, the 22nd of April, where we'll have Sarah Lynch, who talks about setting up her businesses, Swim Buddies and Ebb and Flow. Plus, we're on Instagram, check it out, Businesspreneur Podcast, give us a follow. And also, I'd really appreciate if you like, subscribe, rate, review, screenshot, put it on your story, whatever it is, all that good stuff. And I look forward to being back on here next week. Thank you and goodbye.